Jake Rourke had known rough nights in the desert, but nothing prepared him for the one when Dustfire vanished. The sun had dipped behind the red cliffs, leaving the land washed in purple dusk. Jake had unsaddled his Mustang, brushed the dust from the animal's flank, and tied him to a sturdy mesquite branch before settling beside the fire. The air smelled of dry sage, and the distant hum of cicadas mixed with the occasional howl of a hungry coyote. Everything felt calm, the kind of quiet that made a man believe. He had nothing more to fear from the world until Dustfire's sudden restless snort shattered it. Jake looked up in time to see Dustfire jerk his reins, eyes wide with some unspoken fear. Before Jake could rise, the horse tore free and bolted into the darkness. The sound of hooves faded so fast, it was as if the night swallowed them whole. Jake grabbed his hat and sprinted after him. But every direction looked the same, black, empty, endless. After 20 minutes of stumbling across rocks and dry brush, he realized he had no chance of catching the horse in the dark. Dustfire was smart, but the desert was cruel. Anything could happen out there: rattlesnakes, sinkholes, or a bad misstep on the canyon edge. Jake barely slept, listening to the wind push sand across the ground like ghostly whispers. By dawn, his worry had hardened into dread. Horses didn't just run without reason. Something had spooked Dustfire, something close. Jake kicked apart the dead ashes of the fire and prepared to pack what little gear he had left. Then he heard it, the steady rhythm of hooves, slow and deliberate. Jake froze, hand drifting toward his revolver. The sound grew clearer, echoing between the canyon walls. When Dustfire finally emerged from the pale morning haze, Jake's breath caught in his throat. The Mustang's reins dragged loosely, and his coat was streaked with dust and something darker, blood, but not his own. Across the saddle lay a woman, Apache, barely conscious. Her long black hair hung over Dustfire's flank like a curtain, hiding her face. Her clothes were torn, and her wrists bore bruises that told a story no words needed to explain. Jake rushed forward, stunned into silence. Dustfire lowered his head gently, as if presenting the woman to him, as if he understood the weight of what he carried. Jake touched the woman's shoulder carefully. She stirred at his touch, breathing faintly. "Lord above," he whispered, voice low with disbelief. Dustfire hadn't run away. He'd gone searching, and he'd brought back a reason Jake's life was about to change forever. For hours after Jake carried the Apache woman away from Dustfire's saddle, she lay still beside the warmed stones near his campfire. Jake checked her breathing, cleaned the dried blood from a cut near her temple, and offered her canteen water each time her lips parted. The sun climbed higher, beating down with desert heat, but she didn't wake. Dustfire stayed close, circling the camp with restless energy, ears twitching at every distant sound. Jake had never seen the Mustang behave so protectively. It was as if the horse understood the woman's condition better than he did. It was just past midday when the woman finally stirred. Her eyes opened suddenly, sharp, dark, and filled with fear. She pushed herself up and spoke rapidly in Apache, voice tense like a cornered animal. Jake lifted both hands slowly. "Easy now," he said, keeping his voice low and calm. "You're safe. Nobody's gonna hurt you." She stared at him as though measuring the truth in his words. Gradually, her shoulders eased, though her breath still trembled. After a long pause, she spoke again, this time in broken English. "Name Tulla." Jake repeated it softly so she knew he respected it, and she gave a small nod. Most people he'd met kept a safe distance from Apache women. But Jake felt something different, maybe because Dustfire had brought her. Maybe because he saw the strength behind the pain in her eyes. When he asked if she needed food, she shook her head. When he asked what happened, she tightened her jaw and looked away. Jake didn't push. Some stories were too raw to be told on command. Later, as Jake prepared beans over the small fire, he noticed Tala watching him. Her expression was not afraid anymore. It was cautious, studying him like a puzzle. Finally, she broke the silence with a whisper harsh from smoke and tears. "Dustfire. He find me." She touched her chest as she said it, as if remembering the moment the horse appeared out of the dark. "Your horse saved me from men who burned my village." Jake froze, spoon halfway to the pot. "Which men?" She lifted her gaze toward the distant mountains, eyes burning with grief and fury. White raiders, not soldiers, bad men. They take women, kill warriors. Jake felt something sink deep in his gut. He'd heard rumors of gangs preying on Apache families, but he never imagined he'd be pulled into it so personally. Tyler's voice dropped to a trembling whisper. They think I am dead. Or theirs? The fire crackled between them as Jake realized two things. She wasn't safe, and whoever had done this wouldn't simply give up the hunt. And for reasons he didn't yet understand, Tyler's fate was now tied to his. Jake didn't sleep much that night. Tyler dozed lightly beside the fire, waking at every crack of a twig or sigh of the wind. Dustfire kept pacing, lifting his head toward the open desert like he sensed the danger drifting closer with every passing hour. Just before dawn, when the sky was still a pale, uncertain gray, Dustfire suddenly stopped and stared west, his ears pinned forward. Jake felt the shift in the air, tight, heavy, like the desert was holding its breath. Tyler sat up instantly, fingers gripping the blanket around her shoulders. They're coming, she whispered. Jake stepped out from the camp and scanned the horizon. At first, he saw only the rolling haze of dust. But then three shapes emerged, riders moving, with the confidence of men who feared nothing and owned everything they touched. As they drew closer, Jake recognized their silhouettes. The Crowley brothers, a name whispered in saloons with hatred and in fear around campfires. Men who raided small settlements, stole horses, kidnapped women, and sold them as if they were cattle. Jake had crossed paths with them once, years ago. He'd hoped never to again. The riders approached slowly, their horses kicking up sand. Crowley, the eldest and the meanest of the lot, smirked when he saw Jake. We've been looking for something. That belongs to us, he said, glancing past Jake toward Tyler. Jake didn't turn to look at her. He kept his eyes locked on Crowley, jaw clenched. She don't belong to you, Jake said. Never did. Crowley spat into the dirt. Ain't your business, cowboy. Step aside. Jake stepped forward instead, hand resting near his revolver. Not today. For a second, the desert went completely silent. Even the wind held still. Then one of the brothers reached for his gun, and that was all it took. The crack of gunfire echoed across the canyon. Jake fired first, dropping the youngest Crowley off his saddle. The middle brother shot back, grazing Jake's sleeve. Dustfire bolted sideways to avoid the bullets, circling back with a fierce scream. Tyler, instead of running, grabbed the fallen rifle lying near Jake's bedroll. She aimed with astonishing steadiness and fired, hitting the middle brother square in the shoulder. Crowley cursed, clutching his arm as he spun his horse around. This ain't over, he shouted before he and the surviving brother retreated into the canyon, leaving a trail of dust and anger behind them. Jake lowered his gun slowly. Tyler stood beside him, breathing hard but unshaken. He looked at her with a mix of shock and admiration. You fight like you've been doing it your whole life, he said. Tyler didn't smile. She simply met his gaze and answered quietly, I fight for my people. And now, for you. As the sun finally rose, painting the desert gold, Jake understood this wasn't just a rescue anymore. It was a war, and he and Tyler were in it together.